Well, welcome everyone. My name is Justin Toll. I'm the president at Educo. I'm going to be your host for today's special presentation. You're joining Educo Academy. We are compassionate about helping people and animals with natural medicine. Today's program, we're going to run about 1 hour. So today's webinar is on holistic methylation. So my name is Justin Toll. This is presented by Dr. Jay Dunn. And we're in the beginning of springtime in 2022. But we're talking about a subject that is pretty old in the sense of where we come from, and then how do we operate in the current world and environment where we're at. Today, we're going to do the second segment on holistic methylation and apply this information to a patient that has signed away their HIPAA requirements to be able to share their secrets of their genes with us and apply that into the world. So the content of this production is intended solely for healthcare professionals and for educational purposes only. The information set forth herein is holistic in nature and not offered as complete or comprehensive training in all subjects referenced. It's not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration or any other medical body, and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And this is part of the research that we want people to do, to use their own discretion and perform their own research and their own clinical experience. Okay, that's good. So Educo, A-D-U-C-O. I'm wearing a little bit of green today because it's St. Patrick's Day, but it's really a blue, isn't it? So we're here at Educo. Educo is based on the derivation of a Latin word, educo with an E, and that's to lead forth or to educate. And we support practitioners and cultivate superior products so you can transform lives for the better. We have several product lines. Third Planet, using mushrooms and herbs together, is an innovative product company. We also have food research using whole food nutrients for nutrition. Focal Evolve is a well-researched and clinically proven functional medicine supplement company. And everything from there in between, from light therapy to great liposomal deliveries with nutrients by Quicksilver Scientific. So check us out with educo.com. Follow us on Instagram at Educo Health. And also this program is eligible for 1 hour of the Applied Clinical Nutrition Program if you're in it. So I'd like to welcome you, Dr. Jay Dunn. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going deep and inspired into the work that you put together on a very hard subject for many people, looking at applying our genetics individually into the world of holistic medicine and being able to apply it into what we should do about it, if anything. And I learned early on that our genes are not our destiny. What have you found about that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Justin, for having me back on. I'm excited to go to the next level with this and show people what you can do with modifying our genetic code. It's epigenetics, essentially, that we can target specific nutrients that actually change the expression of our genes. And that's just may sound simple, but it's really epic and groundbreaking. So I'm hoping to, have a nice association with Educo because you guys have some awesome, really awesome products. And the combination of, using your products with our protocol and understanding how they fit into the genetic piece is really going to be rewarding. So I'm excited about our collaboration.
Me too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead. So, so those of you that are joining us, this is the applied part of looking at my happy genes. So I did a specific genetic test. We got the results back, and it's applied into the My Happy Genes algorithms and software, which is extensive, to really put it into a format that we can kind of get our arms around as practitioners and be able to apply this to the patient so they can get a healthy life. And so we're going to go through that today. And we can only cover so much in this time, I know, but hopefully there'll be something of value to you, and we can go deeper on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, very much so. And I wanna just do a real quick review of what we did last time, and say to those of you that took advantage of the special where we gave you the DNA kit and you get the 4 reports, just let me know when you get your DNA back, when you've got notice that your DNA file is back, and I'll run those reports for you for free. So we have a different special on today, so we'll tell you about that at the end. But yeah, so let me just jump in here. Before I go in too far, just to address what you were saying, it's a very complicated topic when you add the biochemistry in with the genetics and studying epigenetics and how do the nutrients really fit in. I'm a muscle tester, so I really kind of figured it all out through muscle testing, to be honest, and research. But the reason that I created the My Happy Genes was because there were a lot of people that didn't really have the bandwidth to sit down and take that deep dive that you're talking about, and really understand the biochemistry. It's a lot to take in. So I wanted a software program that would do it for us and kind of shortcut the process. So really it was designed for practitioners who, they get it. They know that genetics is important. They know that epigenetics is a huge topic, and that diet and lifestyle and supplementation can change our genes. But how do I do it? How do I get into it? How do I use it? And that was why we created a software program to make it all easy for you. So that's the good news, is you can still use it without, having a PhD in biochemistry. So let's jump in here. So we're going to be looking at genetic variants and their impact on health. There are specific genetic variants that we are really focused on. I'm not looking at all 6 billion base pairs. That would be a really daunting process. We kind of broke it down into some genetic variants that have a very real and tangible impact on our health, and really kind of want to bring understanding to those areas that we have some knowledge to hang our hat on, such as sympathetic dominance or detoxification problems or allergies or brain chemistry issues. We can look at specific genetic variants in pathways that really we understand because we've been working with those as practitioners. We've been working with that kind of stuff for a long time. And part of how I got into this was, I'm a functional medicine practitioner. I've been doing functional medicine for a long, long time. But I still had people that weren't getting well, and I knew there was something we were missing. And I started looking into the genetics. And so now I look at functional medicine in a very different way. It was a huge paradigm shift. And so my job is to try to get you to understand that paradigm shift, and how understanding genetic variants really is the deeper level that is causative of those things that we've been working on. For instance, those people that have low adrenals, we actually looking at the genetic variants into why does that person not create adrenaline themselves, rather than giving them adrenaline and, kind of patchworking things together. Or if they're not detoxing, I don't put people on detox programs anymore. I get their body doing it. And you do that through specific targeted nutrients that turn on detoxification. So the immune system, same thing. Instead of fighting viruses, I turn on the immune system to the maximum capacity with very specific nutrients. So it's those kind of concepts that are a little bit of a, you really have to kind of think differently. And so, when Justin and I have been talking, he's like, yeah, I have this especially his mushrooms. He's super excited about his mushroom line. And ergothioneine is one of those nutrients that really turns on a genetic variant that upregulates energy production and turns on the mitochondria. So we look at it a different way. Instead of, with mushrooms, I've always thought about them as immune modulators, but I use it in a very different way to kind of turn on mitochondria,
Hmm.
very targeted for a specific gene that is critical in that pathway. So those are the kind of concepts that I want to get across in this hour, but I also want to show you, the report that Justin was talking about. I'm not going to go through my creds, blah, blah, blah. So again, underlying causes, deeper than we've gone. And we know all of this. We know that diet and seasons and disease exposure, toxic chemicals, drugs, financial status or stress, exercise, microbiome, therapeutic drugs, alternative medicine, social interactions, and psychological states have a very real impact on our genetic modulation. That everything we do, everything that we are exposed to affects our genes, either turns them on, turns them off, makes them express, or makes them not express. So we know this, but I want you to just remember that the reason why we say this diet is best for you is because it's in alignment with your particular genes. So just think a little bit deeper into the genetic realm when we're talking about diet, lifestyle, and supplementation. This is a fairly new science. May 2006 was when the last chromosome was published. Very new information coming out. And I really think that we are on the cutting edge of it because, again, as muscle testers or kinesiologists or clinicians, we're using it on the ground level. So trying to understand genetics at that level, I don't really think anybody's doing a lot of that yet.
Mhm.
The DNA molecule, just a review, we have 46 chromosomes, 2 meters of DNA, 3 billion DNA subunits. That's a lot of subunits. And as you recall, the A, T, C, and G, which make up approximately 30,000 genes, and they code for proteins that perform most of life's functions. So again, we're interested in those ones that are called hub genes that, for instance, the vitamin D receptor, if you have a genetic variant there and you don't make that vitamin D receptor correctly, you can't really absorb vitamin D efficiently. It's going to reduce, especially if you've got both parents gave you the wrong code for that and it's homozygous variant, you could reduce that effectiveness by 70%. So you can be taking all the vitamin D in the world, not going to absorb it because your receptors don't work correctly. And so those are the concepts that are real important to us, as natural healthcare practitioners. We know the importance of vitamin D. So as we look into what are the cofactors that make that enzyme work better, make that receptor work better, that's big. That's a big topic. So that's where Justin and I are working on that kind of thing. So just to review the single nucleotide polymorphisms, these are SNPs. These are one change in that DNA base pair can make that code for an enzyme not correct. And so it's going to reduce its effectiveness. So let's say it was in lactase, your ability to make the enzyme that breaks down lactose. If you can't make it correctly, then you're going to become lactose intolerant. So it's that sort of concept, just to review. Again, homozygous variants, both parents gave you the wrong code. Again, these aren't mistakes. I don't want you to think of these as mutations or mistakes. They are variations. They're, as we've evolved, we have developed certain ways to be with the environment in a better way. And so your parents, their grandparents, on down the line, adapted to their environment by, these changes in the codes. So they're not mistakes. They're just variations, and they make you unique. We are 99.9% the same. It's that 0.1% that makes us different. And that's in those genes that code for these kind of enzymes that how well do you make energy? How well do you break down your neurotransmitters? Or how well do you make neurotransmitters? Or how do you break down histamine or detox? Those things make you different. So you guys probably all know, you can have a couple that lives together and he's really good at detoxing and she's not. And she's like, our environment is toxic. And he's like, you're crazy. We're fine. It's all in your head. It's not. It's a variation. So her ability to tolerate toxins could be very different than his. So that's what makes us different. So when we look at when we're looking at this report, I want to just give you a primer on what exactly you're looking at. On the left-hand side here, where you see the RSID number in this column, this is the code that was given to this particular SNP during the Genome Project, when we're working on the Genome Project. And these SNPs are on chromosome number 1. There's its position on that chromosome. A chromosome can be millions of base pairs long, and that's where it lives, on that chromosome. And then this is the genotype that you inherited, the AA. So one A from mom, one A from dad. And if the risk allele, if the one that's going to cause problems is an A, then this person is homozygous for that particular SNP. If A is the correct allele, then they're fine. And so that's the way we're going to look at this. What did you inherit, and is it a risk allele, or is it likely to cause a problem? So let me move along here. This is the interactive pathway chart that I created. And it was a way to really put genetics into a kind of a visual representation that we can kind of hang our hats on. And I'm gonna pop open the real one in a minute, because Justin was like, "Can you dive in there?" Because this is like completely overwhelming. It is, but when we start to kind of break it apart, let me do that real quick. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna pull up the real one. So this is the interactive chart. Because I don't have a very good memory, I created this chart really for me, because it was like, I don't remember where this fits in the biochemical pathways. So if we do a deep dive into here, since we talked initially about that vitamin D receptor, this guy's right here. So anywhere you see a purple balloon, that's a vitamin D receptor, or sorry, that's a genetic variant, or a possible area where you could have a SNP. This vitamin D receptor has a lot to do with infections and T cells, how well you mature your T cells so that they can fight infections. So we have here susceptibility, when you have a genetic variant, to small intestine bowel overgrowth, for instance, among many other things. Your ability to absorb vitamin D is involved in so many different things. It's also how we make dopamine in the body, and serotonin, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. So somebody with a variant here is going to have low dopamine levels, which can lead to depression. They're going to have low norepinephrine and adrenaline levels. These are your adrenal people. I know you have a ton of them. I did. I think everybody that came in had low adrenals. It's such a big thing that we see. So upregulating the vitamin D receptor, and their body starts to make adrenaline, and you don't have to give them adrenaline. So it's so critical that we go in exactly for that genetic variant, give that body what it needs to function correctly, give it the cofactors that make that receptor open up and vitamin D attach there. Everything starts to turn on. That's what I found, and it was fascinating, because it was like, oh my God, I was one of those. It was on adrenal support forever, and now I don't need it because my body makes it. It's like, it's beautiful. And I love that concept. Let's turn the body on, give it what it needs to do, what it should be doing. So if you can ask yourself those questions as you go along, like, why is the body not doing this? Why is it not fighting infection? Why is it not detoxing? Why is it not making adrenaline? That's a better question than, oh, let's give the body what it, let's make up for it. Let's give the body targeted nutrition to turn it on correctly. So that's the concept I really want you to get here. So this pathway looks like a lot of gobbledygook, but it is all the basic pathways that happen at the cellular level that govern how we make energy, how we make neurotransmitters, how we break them down, how we detox, how we repair, how just all the things that happen at the cellular level that are so critical to our health. We're going in there. Let's go in and see what's happening at the cellular level, at the genetic level. Where do you have a slowdown because you inherited a SNP, and where do you need support, specific support for that area? And the problem with like a multiple vitamin is, you just gave somebody something that upregulated an area they didn't need upregulated, and downregulating an area that they might not have needed down. It's just too many of these going on at the same time, and it's not specific enough. And so that's where the software program creates this very specific supplement recommendation based on the interplay of these genes. Like, if you've got this one and this one, then you need this supplement, but only this one. Without that one, you need this supplement. So it's a lot to think about and try to do it by yourself. So the software really does it for you, which is kind of cool. And these are the pathways. Again, I'm not going to go too far into that, but let's move on. Methylation. Just a quick, just so you can get this concept maybe in your head a little bit better. This is the neurotransmitter pathway. So this tryptophan is converted into 5-HTP through the action of this enzyme, the tryptophan hydroxylase. You hear the ASE ending, and that's an enzyme, right? Its cofactors are vitamin D, vitamin B12, and folic acid. So if you have a genetic variant there and you're reduced by 70% function, your tryptophan cannot be made into 5-HTP readily, and then serotonin is going to be low. So logically, we're looking at depression, right? So if we give the person, you can't give this person 5-HTP. I mean, especially if they've got a variant here too, it's just not going to work. So if we give them B12 or folic acid or vitamin D, then we've upregulated this enzyme, and now the body can turn tryptophan into serotonin efficiently, or B6 or zinc or magnesium. So it's very specific targeted nutrition for these pathways. Without the ability to turn tryptophan into 5-HTP, we're looking at major neuropsychiatric disorders. It's that simple. Just give them the exact right molecule to get this pathway working, and then the brain makes serotonin. And that's where it was just stunning. When I started working with this in the clinic, people were like coming back going, I feel happy. I really feel happy. And it wasn't like, yeah, happy. It was like, I just feel like peaceful and balanced and calm. And so that happened to me. And that was one reason why I got into this work, was like, oh my God, I was like my entire life suffering with depression, and bam, it was gone with the exact right molecules from my particular genetics that turned on my ability to make serotonin and dopamine. So it was like, okay, big aha here, So when Justin and I are talking, he's like, well, I've got these great products that have these in it or these in it. And they have to be, again, we're trying to get very specific. They can't have a lot of things in them because we could throw things off that we don't want to throw off. So that's why we do often the very single nutrients in the right place and the right amount to upregulate these pathways. So let's move on. And you should have these notes, I believe. You gave them the notes, Justin, as far as like the PowerPoint?
No one gets the notes.
No one gets the notes.
No one has them. I can give them. Yeah.
Okay, we can do a modified version of them and maybe send them to people if they're interested, because there's a lot of good information in there if you want to read those.
Yeah.
So we looked at some crossovers. Are there things in here that we can use that will really upregulate these genetic variants in a very specific way? And so we've been talking back and forth about how do his products, relate to what I need as far as to make, very specific recommendations here. So we've come up with a really good list of these products that are fantastic. He's really done a lot of work and is very passionate about the quality of the products, the liposomal delivery, how they're grown. In fact, he was showing me yesterday, he was growing some mushrooms on his desk there. That was so cool. The reishi, I think it was.
Yeah, reishi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. But he's diving so deeply into the mushroom thing, and it's very cool and learning a ton. So we have some good crossover products here that can really work in these pathways.
I think we could dive into these too, looking at kind of the results from the My Happy Genes test, because I think we can even circle back on why would this be recommended. And
yeah, okay. Yeah. When we get to your report, we'll show you, or the person's report. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna leave here, and I want to go into the My Happy Genes report and kind of show you how.
And if people that are listening live with us would like the notes, I can send those to you. So and I'm Justin@aduco.com. So
cool. Okay, all right. Hi, you guys. I'm seeing lots of highs there. Hi, Michael Kessler.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to look. This is the practitioner portal. As a practitioner, you're eligible to become a practitioner. If you're licensed, whether you're a clinical nutritionist or acupuncturist or chiropractor or medical doctor or DO or whatever, if you're a licensed healthcare practitioner, you're welcome to become a practitioner. It doesn't cost you anything. You just get wholesale pricing. You get wholesale pricing on the DNA kit and then wholesale pricing on the reports.
Mhm.
So it's a great deal for you. It doesn't cost you anything, but you can make some nice income on it, and people are loving it. The patients, with the reports and the feedback we're getting are pretty stunning.
Mhm.
So this is we have 5 reports. We have the mood and personality report, diet and lifestyle. It gives you very specific diet and lifestyle recommendations. My healthy genes is more about medical conditions, and we'll look at that in a minute.
Mhm.
Biochemical pathway analysis. For those of you that are doing the holistic methylation or want to get deeper into the genetic pathway analysis, which pathways are best to look at for your patient, that one is good. And then this is the personalized supplement recommendations. And so our program, we have the patient take a questionnaire so that we know what is expressing. Because just because you have a genetic variant doesn't necessarily mean that gene is expressing. And you may be already balancing it out through your diet and lifestyle and supplementation and good health care or whatever.
Mhm.
So let's take a look at the mood and personality report. Okay. Take a minute to kind of populate here. There we go. Okay, so what we did was we looked at a bunch of different genes. You can see these possible SNPs down here all have very good PubMed related studies showing that they are very much associated with an increased risk of alcohol addiction. So it's not never one gene, one issue. It's always a blend of genes, an accumulation of genes that's going to show us your relative risk. And so for this person, they're in a fairly low risk zone there. So, they're good partiers, good party animals. But if it's up here, that means that, they can't stop. That once they start drinking, they're not going to be able to stop. The high risk of alcoholism there. This one is anger, aggression, and irritability. So middle of the road here is good. And again, this is the interesting thing is when I go over these reports with patients, they're like, yeah, oh gosh, this makes so much sense. No wonder I get irritable. And it's like, yeah, well, it's not your fault. Your brain is set up to have irritating neurotransmitters in there on a regular basis. And if you don't take the right nutrients to kind of get them out, they can cause, grouchy factor.
Mhm.
So it gives people a lot of compassion about what's going on with them and why they are the way they are, which is very cool. And for me too, when I saw my depression risk factor, I was like, oh my God, no wonder. It wasn't me. It wasn't my lack of good attitude. It was a definite biochemical risk, that was happening there.
And just to point out, on below, you have the genetic variants listed,
Yeah.
and
So down here.
and also, yeah, and so we can look up those individually and just see how many of those are, and that's kind of accumulating into this bar of risk or high risk, low risk.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so if you have several homozygous variants in these genes, it's going to increase that slider going to the right. And the more regular genes you have on there, it'll slide it to the left. So this is a accumulated algorithm that looks at, your relative risk in all those genes. So you can see this one, this is anxiety and stress imbalances, and there are quite a few genes that can lead to anxiety.
Mhm.
Attention and focus issues. This is like ADD and ADHD kind of things. Brain imbalance and thought disorders. This is like schizophrenia kind of susceptibility. You can see, look at all the genes that are associated with schizophrenia. It's kind of interesting. And depression. This is major depressive disorder. So this person is pretty like down the middle on all these sliders so far, which is it's pretty rare, and it's actually a pretty good place to be. Depression and sadness, this is more of a mild form here, and different genes kind of really contribute to that milder form of depression. This is like autism or Asperger syndrome, ASD kinds of things.
Mm.
Difficulty forming relationships. So this is like has to do with oxytocin, how much oxytocin you have. So I just want you to understand that, when this slider is way down in the green, that may or may not be optimal. So for this one,
Hmm.
this person, if they were way down in the green, they would be way too empathetic and would take on other people's emotions and be very vulnerable, just gullible. So,
Hmm.
uh, my daughter it's funny, one time she said, Mom, do you know gullible's not in the dictionary? And I was like, it is too? I went over there looking it up. I was like, there was my picture. I was like, anyway. Anyway. But yeah, way too gullible, way too trusting, way too open. And up here, way too closed, no empathy, no, and maybe people like this, on both those spectrums. So it's kind of interesting to see. So in the middle is a pretty good place to be here.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that, because there were some here at 0%, and I was like, oh, that's
That's good.
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily. So
That's really, yeah.
yeah, even with the grouchy gene, if it's way too in the green, it means you're just like way too easygoing and you don't have good boundaries and you can't say no to anybody, and you can't stand up for yourself. So
Hmm.
again, in the middle is really good for the majority of these. General tendency for addictions, pretty low. Hormone-related mood swings in women, uh, it's good. This person is male, so that's good. Learning difficulties, pretty good. This is actually more desirable to be on the lower side, but sometimes this is a gift. And, for me, I'm like way up here in the 80%. And it makes sense to me because I really do struggle
Mhm.
with reading comprehension and memory. So that, again, that's why I created that interactive chart because I love this material and I wanted to remember what it was, but I can't retain things very well. So
And I know this patient has dyslexia.
is that right? Yeah. Okay. And mood swings, this is like a bipolar risk. You can see how many genes are associated with bipolar risk, which is kind of interesting. 100% novelty seeking and impulsivity. So this person is likely to, the positive aspects of this are curiosity, love of travel and exploration, and innovative thinking. Negative aspects might include difficulty holding down a job, remaining in a relationship, or staying in one place very long. They're gypsies. They tend to be gypsies. They're like, give me something new. I need a new project, to take on. Let's go, let's go.
Hmm.
This is OCD tendencies, perfectionist tendencies. And this is, again, middle of the road is a good place to be because the positive aspects being a sense of wanting to do a good job, good focus and concentration to complete tasks and do things well, tendency to be neat and organized. If it's too far on the right, they have, the whole constant hand washing, fear of germs or contamination, unwanted, forbidden, taboo thoughts, having to have things in symmetrical or perfect order, having to be perfect at all tasks and kind of never completing them because they're just never good enough. So
Hmm.
this is again a pretty good place to be. You're able to say, this person is able to say, that's good enough. It's good. I feel good about my job. I know it could be better, but it's time to move on. This is PTSD risk. So I'm working with a lot of vets who have PTSD and looking at, their relative risk, which again is comforting and compassion giving for them, and giving them a way to reduce that risk. And what this means is they don't break down their stressful neurotransmitters well, and they stay in their body too long. So they're already at like this threshold of stress, and then they add an event to it, and they escalate way up to here. Whereas most of us are down here, they start here, so it's easy for them to escalate up to that higher area.
Hmm.
So this can also, I don't know, maybe it's not a real sticking thing to think about, but when somebody's signing up for the armed services or something, if they look at this slider and go, okay, this person needs to be behind a desk, not on the firing line,
Mhm.
so it could inform that. Risk of opioid addiction, I see everything from way low to way high. And again, good information to know that you may be one of those people that just don't ever let your doctor give you opioids because you are just way susceptible to addiction.
Hmm.
And seasonal affective disorder, pretty low risk for this person. Sleep disorders, moderate. So then we get into the actual gene table, and it's down here. So we're looking at, when we see green results over here, or negative, negative, that's the normal code. You got the right code for that particular SNP. If it's yellow, you got a heterozygous. One of your parents gave you a different code than the normal. And if it's red, then that's homozygous. Both parents gave you a variation in that SNP, and it can reduce that enzyme by about 70%. So those are the ones that we're going to pay the most attention to. So this report summary, the SNP, again, this is a possible variation in DNA that relates to changes in the body. The RSID, that's the ID number that was assigned to the Genome Project to identify each gene or SNP.
Mhm.
That's the characteristic that's most affected by the genetics. And often there are several. It isn't like so linear that just one gene does this one thing. So there are lots of different things that can be affected by that. The risk allele is the wrong code in your DNA that results in a disease risk. So we're looking at, is that A is the risk allele, but this person got a GG, so they, so what codes for this gene you inherited from mom and dad? They got the right code for that one, so it comes up green, which is good or correct on that area. So for each of these, we'll go down here to where the first red is. This ABCG8 gene, if you you click on that, and it'll pop open a balloon, and it'll tell you what it does. So this is the ATP binding cassette family G member 8. Booyah. This enzyme is involved in eliminating plant sterols, or fatty components in plants, in the bile. Sterolin also helps regulate levels of cholesterol. So genetic variants result in a defective sterolin transporter and impair the elimination of plant sterols and cholesterol from the body. This can result in clogged blood vessels that can impair blood flow, or atherosclerosis, fatty skin growth, or xanthomas, and potentially anemia. So for each of these, we found a study, a PubMed study. So you can click on these, and it'll go right to where that information came from. So this will show you exactly where, and everything I say in here is backed up by a study, where I got that information. So every one of these has, a study behind it. You can click on that and look at that study if you want to dive that deep.
And this for me is the most amazing part of it, because this is taking something so daunting, and you've put it all into the report, so we can literally just click on it and it will pull up that website or whatever, SNP or specific ID. And
Right, yeah. I wanted everything I said to be verifiable by a really good study. So, for several reasons. One is, I wanted this to be as accurate as possible. And number two is I want it to be science-based. I want people to not be able to say, hey, this makes no sense. This is just, woo-woo. No. This is the top of the line studies here. These are the best of the best. So everything I say has a way to verify it. This RSID, if you click on that, that'll go right to a website called Snippedia.
mhm.
And that's a website where where they accumulated all the studies done on this particular gene. You can see this ABCG8 over here. These are all PubMed studies, so they show you, different studies that have been done on that particular gene. So, and then this is the, again, a different study right there that has to do with the digestive system and that particular genetic variant. So lots of things you can do to research here on these genes. So when I do a reading on people, and we actually are giving away a reading, I'm giving away an hour reading for those people that buy 5 DNA kits for their practice. And I'll go over these with you. I'll look at your particular genetic report, or a patient's, or a spouse, or a loved one, or whatever, friend, family. And we can read it, and it's really cool because it reads like a crystal ball. I can tell a ton of things about you by looking at this genetic report. Do you want to do some of that, Justin, or
Yeah, let's do some of that.
for this patient? Okay. So I'm looking at, specific genes that really kind of speak to this person's personality, and maybe some disease risks that kind of jump out at me here. But so for instance, this COMT gene right here, you can see this person has a lot of genetic variants here. And if you pop that open, you can kind of get an idea of what this person has to deal with. The COMT enzyme helps break down neurotransmitters and maintain appropriate levels of these neurotransmitters in the brain. Variants in the COMT gene can lead to high levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, or adrenaline, which just logically, that's going to lead to anxiety, right? If you can't, this is a person who's in sympathetic dominance a lot because they can't get those stress neurotransmitters out of their body easily. High levels of dopamine have been associated with intelligence. These people are often very smart, very creative, just always thinking of new ideas, but it can lead to attention issues, increased irritation, anxiety, and anger. And you can see that all these studies that have shown association with genetic variants there. And then down here, we give dietary and lifestyle recommendations. So avoid stress. Bet you never thought of that.
It's also lifestyle techniques too. So
Very much so.
learning how to identify stress, meditation, having other parts in your life,
Yeah.
can be a way of coping or dealing with that issue. But without the nutrient component too, you're building this whole way of method of dealing with it without actually getting to the biochemistry.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are the people that really need to meditate. It's tough for them because their brains never shut up. But if they learn to do that, it's incredible. Avoiding caffeine stimulates COMT inhibitors, and that's quercetin, rutin, luteolin, green tea. Not good for these people because that slows down that enzyme even further. Chocolate and wine also slow down that enzyme. Strawberries, apples, persimmons, onions, and cucumbers. Doesn't mean you can't have any, but if you notice that you're getting really irritated when you eat a particular food like that, it's often because it's slowing down that enzyme. And people go, "Oh, everybody should drink green tea because it's got full of antioxidants." Not this person, and that's the thing about these genetic variants is there is no one size fits all, it turns out.
When
So
you
yeah, when I see this, I go, this person is
Hmm.
fantastic. They're usually really fun people to be around, but they can't shut it down. They
when
just,
when when you're doing that report with a patient, like I've noticed this just doing these myself, is when you get into the okay, no apples, coffee, green tea, like that's the negotiation phase,
yes,
because
yeah,
I've found many people are attached to the very thing that is keeping them in a state of dysfunction.
yeah.
And so, would you recommend? Okay, let's just take all of these off as the suggestion, because each one of these contributes towards in this one it was a reduced expression of the COMT. How is that
So,
how you do it?
well, yeah, no, it's a good question because, patients often don't do what we tell them to do, turns out. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Well,
So,
I've noticed that, in changing someone's diet
yeah, it's
is
big.
one of the most difficult, and that's why I use supplements so much. But
Yeah,
um,
right.
just like you can't outwork a poor diet for your body, I get into the negotiations with them, and but I often find that I'm like, you know, we're here to help guide you to make the changes in your life, and we can't have you keep continuing doing the same thing and expect for you just to take one of my supplements and your life to change open. This is a change. You're asking me for recommendations on change,
Yeah.
and yeah.
That's it. And it's like, all right, are you willing to just give up the green tea and the coffee? All right, keep your apples and persimmons and all of that. It's not as much of an effect on the body, but if you're going to do that, then we'll take the supplement. So it's like your choice. I'm just here to guide you. Which one do you want to do? Do you want to take more supplements? You want to change your lifestyle? You want to do more meditation? Are you willing to, will it work? Will you do that? Will you make it a regular thing? If not, then okay, we're going to have to go in deeper to get that balance. So yeah, that's totally what you're saying makes sense. That
Mhm.
negotiations. Yeah,
It is.
yeah, and we just turns out we're humans. This person, the interesting thing, the CYPs. This is phase 1 detox. This cytochrome P450s, liver detox. For this person, These are largely green. There's very few variants in here, just a couple slowdowns there. So
Mhm.
they're a really good detoxer. And again, when I look in here and I go, oh wow, you're going to have trouble with detoxification. We're going to probably really need to focus on nutrients that upregulate that for you. But this person is, very robust phase one.
Mhm.
Phase two, if phase two is slow, this is a problem. And we know in functional medicine, if we have a fast phase one and a slow phase two, that can lead to problems. So we're going to look at phase two down the line. There's some other genes in here that are phase two. These are dopamine, beta hydrogenase areas, dopamine decarboxylase. They're really good. You can see a lot of green here. This person has a lot of good genes. And if we see one genetic variant here and three greens and one red, we go, it's minor. The one is going to be canceled out by the three that are good. So when I start to see a lot of them in a category, I go, ooh, yeah, this is a challenge.
Hmm.
This DRD3 is one of my favorites. It's a dopamine receptor, and so it's in the part of the brain that accepts dopamine. So the dopamine is going to attach to it. A red there often means that you don't make the receptor correctly, and it causes an increased desire for things, and a low dopamine state. And in this case, it's often for entrepreneurial tendencies. This is the entrepreneurial gene. So this person is often like they have a hard time working for somebody else. They really kind of have to be their own boss because they don't like to be told what to do, because
Mhm.
they're always thinking of better ways to do something. I can do this better. I know I can. They can't follow a recipe well because they're always thinking about, oh, if I put a little more pepper in here, this probably make it better. So it really colors the personality. And then down in here in the DRD4s, this is the wild child gene. And when I see all greens in here, I go, wow, this person is really responsible. They're always going to do the right thing. They're going to, cross their T's, dot their I's, put their seatbelt on, brush their teeth. They're going to do the right stuff in life. If I see a red in there, I go, ooh, you're a contrary little thing, aren't you? So it's really fascinating to see. Um, these particular ones, this one, the fads, has to do with how well you can absorb fats, so polyunsaturated fatty acids. So it's going to cause some issues with that, and all kinds of disease risks here. And so it informs us about the best diet for this person.
Hmm.
Okay, moving on. So these are glutathione genes. How well do you make glutathione? How well do you break it down? It looks really good. So that's a good sign again for detoxification in this person. HFEs, these are iron overload genes, and they're really good. No issues there. There are some problems here though. This HLA, DQA, these are highly associated with mast cell activation kind of things, and autoimmune susceptibility, food reactions, strange, delayed food reactions that are difficult to figure out in our practice are often due to these HLA variants. These are leftovers from Neanderthal DNA,
Hmm.
and they cause this kind of cross reaction with our body. It's the same gene that keeps us, or that makes our body try to reject an organ transplant. Those genes, if they or those SNPs, if they don't match directly exactly, our body's going to go, not us, boom, and try to kick it out of the body. So same
Hmm.
thing happens with our own cells. So this person has three of them, and this would be something that we would want to pay attention to. The IDOs, this one is kind of an inflammatory pathway up in the kynurenine pathway, so something to pay attention to. I just kind of note these things as we look at other genes. This one, the lactose intolerance, just one gene there, but there are three others, four others, I can't remember, three or four, that we need to look at too, that kind of inform the larger picture there. And this one, the LDL receptor, so this one can cause high LDL levels in this patient, cardiovascular imbalances.
Hmm.
Something to kind of keep an eye on with this patient, get their LDL levels checked. The MEOs, this is the warrior gene. So for this person, kind of a nice person. This is not a grouchy person. They're usually pretty even tempered, although when I see at least one up here, I go, okay, you could probably push this one. You could probably push this person if you push hard enough, but it takes a lot to get them there. Okay. Methylation. So these are methylation, methylene tetrahydrofolate dehydrogenases, reductases, and these are the two most studied genetic variants on the planet. And so this person has a pretty good profile when we're looking at methylation. There isn't a lot going on here. So
Yeah,
good methylation.
MTF HR or MTHFR. So
MTHFR, yeah.
MTH FR. I hear all the time from my practitioners. They're asking about that. So
I know too much emphasis has really been placed on that motherfucker, mother, that MTHFR. Yeah, people are going, oh, you have the MTHFR. Here, take folic acid, and it's like, no, oh my God, you haven't any idea what you just did to the rest of the body. You just created chaos. So that was, for us, we did that in the beginning. My team, my research team, we're like, well, that has an MTHFR. Let's give them methylfolate, and it's like, oh my God, they exploded. Brains are blowing up everywhere. It was bad. But so we learned a lot from that. And it's just, one of many genes that really affect the physiology. It's something to pay attention to for sure, but it's not as prime as people make it out to be. These NATs are part of phase 2 detox. So we're looking at a pretty good situation there, N-acetyltransferase. That's great. Couple of variants here. Now this is where we get into the mushroom thing. These NDUFAS genes require carnitine and CoQ10. Those are its cofactors. The NDUFAS, highly related to neurological problems. Here's ALS. This is Parkinson's. This is mitochondrial dysfunction, which can lead to all kinds of things when you pop open this guy. Parkinson's, Lee syndrome. This is a CoQ10 and carnitine dependent enzyme. The thing about carnitine is it requires ergothioneine to be absorbed. So you can see this cascade of problems. If you have, there's a genetic variant called the SLC22A5. SLC 22A5. If you have that variant, then you need ergothioneine to open up the cell so carnitine can get in, and then this gene with the CoQ10 can benefit. Anyway, the software will tell you. When we get the recommendations for supplementation, 100% you're going to see CoQ10 carnitine along with likely an ergothioneine product, the mushroom products. So we'll see when we get down to the SLCs. This is oxytocin. These are, how well do you form bonds? And for this person, they have a lot of oxytocin. So they kind of have to watch their boundaries. They're going to take on other people's energy and they're really empathetic. They're going to maybe feel too much. So they often need to have downtime and kind of cleanse their system, and however you do that, clear your aura, take a bath or whatever, because they're going to take on a lot of other people's energies. PIMPs, not a major. Good.
when you're prioritizing, so you mostly looking for the red, for the
Yes. Mostly, although I pay attention to some of the areas where there are greens because they indicate something too about the body. So here's the problem. This is the SLC 22A5, and this is, let's read this one because this is important. The enzyme transports carnitine into the cell to process fats as a fuel for energy. Carnitine is mainly obtained from the diet and is needed to transport fatty acids into the mitochondria. Fatty acids are a major source of energy for heart and muscles, so this can lead to muscle weakness and hypoglycemia. Fatty acids may also build up in cells and damage the heart, liver, and muscles. This enzyme relies on adequate levels of ergothioneine from mushrooms or crab meat. Genetic variants may lead to difficulty processing fats as a fuel for energy and have been associated with autoimmune disorders, including Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis. So this is the one I was speaking of, where we need the mushrooms there. So
it is. That's what we've been finding in our Mycorev Immune with reishi, but shiitake and maitake are contain ergothioneine. And I just had 2 doctors in here. They were testing out our Mycorev Adapt, which is cordyceps and rhodiola. and that's generally my adaptogen: strength, stamina, endurance, dealing with stress. But that also contained ergothioneine in their test.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you kind of get the idea here. We're running low on time. I want to show you the other reports real quick and also talk about those products for a minute. So that's the mood and personality. Oops, I went back too far. This is the diet and lifestyle, and this one is kind of cool because it takes all of those genes and looks at which ones are going to, kind of inform us about what your best diet is. Not that alcohol is beneficial, ignore that right there. But they can tolerate it well. Caffeine, not so good. We saw a lot of the comp variants for this person, so they're coming over here into the orange, which means not their bestie. They can maybe have small amounts of it. But it's not just the COMT, it's the NAT, the ADORA, the ADA, the ADHD that inform that one. Fermented foods. For some people, it's way over here. And, we all think of like, oh, fermented foods are so good for you, the natto and sauerkraut and all those things. But for some people, not. Food allergy susceptibility, gluten, histamine foods, intermittent fasting, not good for everybody. Lactose. For this person, they had one gene, it looked like, so it's just, they can tolerate dairy products pretty well. MSG's in here. Nightshades are okay. I've only found one gene so far for nightshades. Maybe keep looking there, but salt, not a problem. Serotonin and tryptophan kind of creeping into the orange. Soy foods are okay. Sulfur's okay. Now we get into the diet. So we looked at all the genes. What is your best diet? And as we get into the green, we're looking at more beneficial. So complex carbs are good.
Okay.
High fat, not as good. So keto, not the best diet for this person. And protein, not as good either. You're pretty much an omnivore, this person is, but their best food is really the complex carbs. So if they can do the majority of their foods in that category, they're going to do best for their genes. So there's that. And then, as we were saying, the third report is more for doctors. So we're looking at autoimmune kind of things, blood cell abnormalities, blood sugar, bone density, those kind of things. And then the gene table is in here too. It also gives you blood work and some supplement recommendations. I'm filling those in as we go. So you can get a sense of, your real health risks. COVID risk is in here. So, and then the fifth report, we take all of those genes, all of those pathways, and then you fill out a questionnaire. Oh, I'm feeling anxious a lot, or I feel depressed, or I have low energy, or I have pain, or whatever. And then, so this person filled that out, and they get a score. So for each pathway, detoxification, they'll have a score here. Hormone pathways, brain chemistry pathways is pretty high. Their score is pretty high here. The goal is 0. This is one area that can change. Your genes won't change, but your expression of those genes can change. And as we modify your diet, lifestyle, supplementation, this score should go down to 0.
Okay.
If we get it right.
And this is a way we can track progress by doing a retest on the questionnaire.
Right. So in 30 days, let's say, you put them on a program, get their supplements, tell them what diet to follow. And then it's motivation for them too. It's like, oh man, you haven't been following your diet, have you? Are you taking your supplements? Because this should be heading down towards 0. So yeah, and then this gives you an exact supplementation report down here. So we took the report for this patient and we looked at, can you see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So we looked at what products out of Aduco's products would cross over into what this person was recommended. And so that's what we're looking at here. Do you want to take
a look? For instance, you were looking at it really looked like a gallbladder liver product, but maybe with betaine, and which I've used for thinning the bile and help assisting gallbladder. And also if someone's ever had their gallbladder removed, they're going to have continual issues with fat digestion and other things. And so there's a product by Food Research. If you look on here, it says Beta Food, which is a funky name. And then after it says FR, that's from Food Research. And that's what I'm using with the whole food supplements. And the dosage is just one a day. That could vary, but this is a highly effective product for that. And there's quite a few here. Now, the analysis and the workup was looking for a great quality of the B6 phosphate.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have that as a single element product. So putting in here from my Focal Evolve line, which is my functional medicine clinical line, Dual Phase Pro, which is a phase 1, phase 2 optimizer. But it has an incredibly great source of B6 phosphate. But I just wanted to bring in there, it does contain other things. And so, and I know the precision that you work in. And so I just didn't know if that was the right recommendation for this report.
Yeah, well, this one, so it has the catechins in there from green tea. So this one for that comp is going to throw that one kind of a little in the wrong direction. So
Okay.
that's why we want to get like precise. But you and I have talked about, formulating. So it's possible that we can.
Yeah. So as I'm doing the protocol, I would select the first one, Beta Food. For this particular one, I'd probably not use this one. So.
Yeah, and you can muscle test it. It may be that, it's not enough to throw it off, or it is for those that are muscle testers.
Yeah.
But if we were left braining it, I would say probably not.
Okay.
So the methyl B complex, yeah, this has some great stuff in there. The riboflavin, thiamine, niacin. It's got the B6 in there. Calcium folinate. It's a fairly high dose, so this is a pretty strong methylator. So for those that require, a heavy dose of methyl groups, this would be a good product.
And this is also liposomal delivery, so it's the closest you can to intravenous vitamin therapy in a sense. It goes right into your system, and you're going to achieve peak levels within 15 to 20 minutes. And so you're really getting the methylated B vitamins in there.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And your vitamin C, I'm super excited about that one. I think that's a really good choice.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another.
And your mushrooms. I think your mushrooms are just awesome.
Yeah. So the MycoRev Immune, which is reishi, shiitake, and maitake, these are all extracts at different ratios from the fruiting body only of the mushroom. And we've formulated this. There was great research on how the combination of these three mushrooms were incredibly effective with the immune system. And there's a ton of research on that piece, but we're also finding that these have ergotheanine as well. So that's why I put this one down, really looking at the comprehensive immune support. But you're going to get some crossover if you're also looking for ergotheanine.
Yeah. It's cool. That's a cool molecule. Can you say something about that real quick? You're learning a ton about that.
Well, we're doing a deep dive into mushrooms around here, from growing them and also getting over mycophobia, the fear of mushrooms.
I mean, the ergothioneine, what that is and how that's an important molecule. It's an incredible antioxidant, and it's even more long-lived than glutathione. So it's like antioxidant capacity is enormous. But anyway,
I find it interesting that, well, maybe I'm just in the world of mushrooms so much that's what we're talking about now. And maybe 2 years ago, no one was talking about it. It felt like
nobody had heard. I had not heard of it. Maybe a year ago. I was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Wow, this is cool. This is a very cool molecule."
But for energy and we're calling it longevity. I guess that's the broad term on it.
Yeah, let me show you where that comes in, Can you see the interactive chart here? Are you seeing
Yes.
it? Okay. Okay. Down here in the electron transport chain and in the Krebs cycle, between the two, between the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain, are these three genes. And they all require ergothioneine and carnitine to work correctly. So if you have a genetic variant in any of those, the is it thionine or theanine?
Theanine. Yeah.
Theanine, is it? So ergothioneine. So it's critical for energy, mitochondrial function. So, and that was, that was different than what I had been reading about. Again, the mushrooms being involved in the immune system, but this is another aspect that is just so big.
Hmm.
And that CoQ10 down in there as well opens up that pathway. Mitochondrial dysfunction is just enormous. That's a whole nother topic. I'd love to do another webinar on just that, just the electron transport chain and what happens down there in the mitochondria. So yeah, your CoQ10 nanoemulsified is awesome. That's a fantastic way to get that in there because it's fat soluble,
And
and
it's
many people really are going to have some difficulty with that.
and we found that just the hard form of it is difficult to digest for many people. That's why I like the liposomal delivery.
Yeah, that's very cool. The green vegetable alkalizer, this one can work well for that COMT.
Mhm.
Yes, that's a good choice. And the Mighty Mag
Yeah,
also
the
COMT.
Mighty Mag is incredible for magnesium, and this came from the world of functional medicine, looking at absorbability. This is using those patented, research-based magnesium sources, and also malic acid. But what we're finding is just 2 a day makes huge difference. And some of my athletes and other people with known issues, brain or musculoskeletal, can take up to 4. But it also doesn't give you loose stools. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a bonus because that can be a problem. Yeah.
and this taught me a big lesson because I shied off on many single based nutrients coming from the world of whole foods. And this product tests incredibly energetic in the world of muscle testing. And, to my surprise, and the body loves it. So we had that in there. And we also have test kits for each of these from Third Planet or Focal Evolve, or, all of them.
I love the little kits they come in too. Those are cool. I thought I had it here, but anyway. So yeah, there's the mitochondrial optimizer, the one nitric oxide. There's the EFAs. Can you talk about that one for a minute?
Yeah, so Monumental 1300. So it's 1.3 grams of fish oil, but it's a EPA DHA. It's definitely emphasized on the EPA. And this one was enzymatically enhanced for absorbability and sustainably harvested, all the things that are important to us about where things come from. But this one has been great, just 1 a day, to hit those key factors. And because of the EPA emphasis, I'm usually going on inflammation and neuroinflammation, but all bodies. And we all know that the American diet is, omega-6 heavy. Let's just call it. So
Yeah, totally. This one, the membrane mend, I'm curious about. I haven't tried it yet, but let me show you where that one will fit in here. I'm going to take you over to the oops, hello, PEMP variant. Come on, right there. So in the methylation pathway, this enzyme right here converts phosphatidylethylamine into phosphatidylcholine. So genetic variants there will cause a deficiency of phosphatidylcholine, which can impair methylation. This is like a small methylation cycle right here. And it's critical for making choline and then acetylcholine for energy, especially muscular energy, musculoskeletal energy. It's a way we don't normally think about it. Genetic variants here lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease as well. So this could be a really good addition.
it is. That's a brand new product.
Is it? Yeah. So you have two different phosphatidylcholine products.
Yeah, so I put both of those in there. I didn't know which one you would like better. One is the pure phosphatidylcholine, and at 700 milligrams for a teaspoon. And that, again, the absorption is incredible. The membrane mend is a part of my for those that can afford it, how to be 20 years younger in energy and mentally and those types of pieces. But it's repairing membranes, intercellular, extracellular membranes, your vascular system and brain. And so what they've put this in with is it has the phosphatidylcholine, the vitamin E, and it has a special herb extract that it turns it almost this cherry red color, and it's just a beautiful thing.
Take pretty supplements.
Yes.
I like it when they match my outfit. It's good.
Well, you don't want to spill this on you though. It will stain. Yeah.
Okay, noted. Ultravitamin. And this guy down here, I'm super interested into the D3K2. Although with the VDR, you really need the vitamin A with it. So you and I have been talking about, there are lots of different vitamin A's out there, but just be aware that that is a cofactor for these two as well, to really open up that vitamin D receptor. Because it's got two sides to it. One side absorbs A and the other side absorbs D. So you got to fill both sides to get that enzyme to open up correctly. So
interesting. Yes, this D3K2, it's one of our top selling products. Liposomal delivery, but it does not contain the A, so we need to find that from another source.
Yeah, or maybe you and I can make an ADK that's
an ADK. Yeah,
the bomb. There are some that are close out there, but I think we could do it better.
Yep. Okay. This is great. So from this, I can easily put the protocol together. I feel really, I have dosage, I have some great pieces on here. So I could put my clinician hat on. I could prioritize these. I can see crossovers too. So it'd probably be, 4 to 5 supplements to get going, and then being able to do the reevaluation. So that's fantastic. I think we should do some Q&A now. So we had some questions too. So we had one practitioner that already purchased the kit from our last time, and she got the results back, but she only can see one report. So I think she wants to see more of those reports.
Yeah, and that's something that I'll have to run for them. So that was the deal was if they bought the DNA kit, that they would get the 4 reports free. So they have to just contact me at drjadunn@myhappygenes.com.
Okay, perfect. So that's how we get that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people interested in the notes. So do I have your permission to send people notes that it asked me? Yeah. Okay.
And if they're interested in really learning this material, the holistic methylation course goes into like a lot of detail in all of this. It's all online. So you can go there if you want to really learn this material.
Okay. One question is, which APOE, let me get my glasses, SNPs do you check for?
We check for, let's take a look here. Check for a bunch of them. Oops, not that. Let's see. With the APO4 for sure. Let me look at the dashboard here.
Okay. So I'm going to circle back on that one. Roberta, you asked me about if am I making a Duco guide for the supplements. It's in progress. You just saw the first version of it. So yes, and I'm going to work with Dr. Dunn too to get her guidance in this, because we want to make it. Another question: what is the wholesale price? I believe that's on the DNA kit. I think it's $225 for the full DNA kit is wholesale.
So two of them, the ApoE2 and the ApoE4 we test for.
Okay, great. All right, let me see if there's other questions. Um, so is this more extensive than the 23andMe health reports?
Yeah, so the 23andMe and Ancestry only test for about 40,000 genes. We test for 375,000 genes in our array, and then we're reporting on 500 of those. And so when we do if we ran 23andMe and Ancestry through our report, you'd only see about half of the genes that we want to see information on. They would show up no result because they don't test for them in their array. They're a lot cheaper, but you only get, a fraction of the information that we want to really go deeper.
Fantastic.
And they sell your data.
Yeah, and they data mine you, yes. So I got a question from Awais Spall. Hey, Awais, I'm glad you're here. Great practitioner in Southern California. Can you go into more detail why overemphasis on the MTHFR can be harmful?
Sure. I'm going to share again, if I may, so I can just kind of give it to you visually. So so each of these pathways are related. They all connect to each other. So it's not like they are separate in any way. When we went way too small there. Sorry, a little lag time. When we turn on methylation through giving somebody methylfolate, we've now turned on detoxification. So if they have genetic variants in those detox pathways down the line, they're going to have like a dump of heavy metals, but they won't be able to get them out. So they're going to feel terrible. And that was what we found initially was like, oh my God, we just activated a bunch of pathways that we should not. We also create a little more dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine and adrenaline. If they have a COMT, they're going to go into anxiety. If they've got genetic variants in the electron transport chain, they're going to gain weight and be tired. So you have to know what's going to happen downstream. And the furthest upstream pathway that we have up in here is methylation. So that's the last thing you should do. You want to make sure all the other pathways are open first before you give somebody a methyl group or a methyl donor.
Oh, that is fantastic. Yeah.
That's the cliff notes.
That is the great notes. It makes total sense. And one last question. Would the protocol suppress genetic defects or help to compensate for genetic issues, that are expressed? They're just curious because a fellow VDR homozygous victim here. Do you also get sunburns easy? I can only withstand 5 minutes of sun without sunblock. Is it just me, or do you know why? So, a couple questions.
Yeah, that's likely several different genetic variants there that are associated, but the VDR definitely. I mean, all of these, so what we're doing is we're upregulating that enzyme as much as possible to kind of make up for that genetic variant. And we're doing that through targeted nutrition. And that, again, a 70% hit is pretty big. You can't get enough sunshine. You can't get enough, of the foods that have vitamin D in it, including mushrooms are vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a big barrier to get across. So that's why supplementation is really important with these, especially homozygous variants in the VDR. Getting the ADK in there really makes up for that, and then normalizes your levels of vitamin D so that all the other things that are affected by vitamin D, adequate levels of vitamin D can be turned on. So absolutely, that's what we're doing.
Well, fantastic. Okay, so that's all the questions we have for today. I want to thank everyone who participated and contributed in that, and everyone that stayed with us for this. This is incredibly important work, and thank you, Dr. Dunn, for sharing this with us. This is just the beginning, but and I want to go much deeper. I'm getting many thanks from people in the chat of the program today, and I just want to thank you too for sharing with us. So I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this special program. I'm going to send out notes to people, and also I just want to welcome you to Educo, and looking forward to working together. So thank you so much, Dr. Dunn.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Justin. It's fun. It's fun working with you and trying to figure out how our systems work together. And eventually I want to come out there and do some hands-on and some in-person classes out in California. So
Oh, we would love that. And we love putting on events and doing that in person. We have such a great community. So,
yeah, you do. One quick thing. There was another question about, does the price include the reports? It includes one report, the mood and personality report, with the price of the DNA kit. The
mhm.
others are extra charge on there. But again, you get your professional discount. That one is 50% discount on the reports themselves. So
Oh,
thank you,
fantastic.
Justin. Very
Okay.
always fun to hang with you.
Okay. Great to hang with you and everyone that joined us. Have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.